This is a perfect place to go in because nobody can see me.
According to Smith, there are signs that someone had disturbed the leaves in the window well and of what he calls finger marks on one of the window panes, possibly from someone wearing a glove. He also points to what he believes to be a shoe scuff on the wall, and he says there are imprints of a high-tech brand boot, apparently not owned by any family member, in the wine cellar where JonBenét's body was found. And he says a suitcase placed under the window to help an intruder get out. Wouldn't there have been footprints then on the suitcase?
The Ramseys have been telling the truth all along.
If anyone knows anything, please help us.
The idea that two God-fearing people decided to kill their daughter by stun gunning her, taking her to the basement, sexually assaulting her, strangling her to death, and then beating her over the head? I mean, come on.
JonBenét was a pet dream come true. The brutality of the killing showed me that this man is a sadistic pet. I believe he brought her down to the farthest, deepest part of that basement and did very brutal things to her.
Where showed a mixture of DNA, partly her DNA and a minor contribution from somebody other than her.
The DNA results specifically stated that the source of that DNA on her underwear were not from anybody in the Ramsey family. Not her, not Patsy, not John, not anybody in the Ramsey family. It's a monster that did this. We need to look at other people that were in and around the Boulder area December 25th, 26th of 1990.
Any ideas who this could be? Bill McReynolds.
He certainly showed up on the Today Show a week later, right in the middle of it.
I adore the family that adopted me as a member of the family, actually. We don't celebrate children enough, Katie.
I am Barbara Ann, and welcome to my channel, Straight Out of Context. This is the unsolved murder case of JonBenét Ramsey, and we're going to discuss the four most likely suspects. This is Santa Bill, also known as Bill McReynolds. He was a very close friend to the Ramseys. He played Santa at all of their Christmas get-togethers, but he also played Santa Claus on TV. He was said to have had a very close bond with JonBenét because she believed him to be the real Santa Claus. Exactly 22 years to the date of JonBenét's unsolved murder, Bill McReynolds' daughter, when she was very young, and her friend came up kidnapped. They never caught the person, but one of the little girls had been SA'd. Detectives had also found out that Bill McReynolds' wife had written a play about a very young little girl who is in the basement of her own home. The coincidences seem to add up.
That would, in my mind, explain how, if we said JonBenét pineapple between 9 p.m. she went to bed. You know, we were suspicious of Reynolds, I guess, in the beginning, and he came to the memorial service. A good friend of mine who was there said, you guys need to go back and look at that video because when Patsy went to hug him, pushed her away. That is the only way it's plausible to me that someone she knew and trusted was going to come upstairs and be a surprise. Why they would have sat and had pineapple and a glass of tea, I don't know.
Bill McReynolds and his wife were ultimately excluded as suspects because they cooperated with investigators, handing over handwriting samples, hair, and the fact that Bill himself had just had very invasive heart and lung surgery really ruled him out as being physically capable of carrying out what happened that night. University of Colorado campus police contacted the Boulder police when they found a 38-year-old trespasser with a backpack, but what was in the backpack was so concerning. This is Gary Oliva. He actually had a stun and a love poem written to and about JonBenét in his backpack. He was a convicted child in the state of Oregon, and he tried to unalive his mother by stringing a telephone cord. He lived in a homeless church only 10 houses away from the Ramsey home and was in that area on December 25th and December 26th of 1996. He had created a shrine to JonBenét, including pictures of her face being pasted onto Monopoly money. And what's even more creepy is exactly a year later, he shows up to the candlelight vigil for JonBenét, marking the 1 year since her murder. And this is the shocking part. As of 3 days ago, he is completely gone since Netflix had posted their new documentary. Gary Oliva is just disappeared and nobody can find him. And we are suspecting that's because of the renewed interest in this unsolved case. Could he really be guilty? And is this why for the past 72 hours he has been completely MIA? On Valentine's Day of 1997, this man who owned a junkyard in part with his two brothers committed an act of self-violence. This suspected self-unaliving of 26-year-old Michael Helgoth. A friend of his later came forward and had stated that he loved to assault animals, especially cats. He had been prosecuted for the SA of a very young child. A former girlfriend of his caught him naked, her very young daughter under a blanket, where he then tells his girlfriend that, quote, "I cannot trust myself with her." He goes on to tell his friend that he always fantasized about cracking a human skull and wanting to know what that was like. He also admits to this friend that he and acquaintance of his were going to come into some money by December of 1996, and he alluded to about $50,000 or $60,000 apiece. Now, this is only interesting because the ransom note to the Ramsey family was demanding $118,000. When that friend checked up with him, he said that it went south and it never came to fruition. This big plan that they had to come into this money. But the disturbing part of Michael Helgoth's unaliving of himself was in the fact that he had multiple prescriptions, but he also had a stun high-tech boots. And those high-tech boots, those black boots you see right there, are exactly the type of boots that they found prints of at the Ramsey house. But everybody has been very suspicious of this because he was right-handed and it looked like he had been unalived through a pillow. And if he lived alone, very far away from anybody else, why would he be worried about the noise or do it through a pillow? This is one of those prints for the high-tech boot. And right there, you can see his stun. Usually people don't unalive themselves through a pillow and with their non-dominant hand. So it's always been very suspicious. Boulder police have always said that the DNA didn't match, but they've never actually released any evidence of that. This is Michael Tracy. He is a journalist, an expert on the case, a documentary maker. He's a friend of the Ramsey family, and he's also a journalism professor at the University of Colorado. He had been receiving emails from somebody calling himself Daxis. Over time, these emails got weirder. He completely admitted to unaliving JonBenét. He admits his favorite age is 6. He was telling him details, intimate details of the crime. And with her cancer coming back, was insisting on having a direct link to Patsy Ramsey. But he got cold feet when he actually had the ability to do that. So police had Michael Tracy do it instead. In those recorded calls, he admits to being in a heated, passionate trance and unaliving JonBenét. This man ends up being John Mark Carr, a U.S. citizen and very young age school teacher who was married twice, once to a 13-year-old girl. And in 2001, in North Carolina, he was actually convicted of 5 counts of possession of child P. He then flees the country, where he then moves to Bangkok, Thailand. He was later extradited to the U.S. And police have ruled him out because he wasn't actually in Boulder at the time of JonBenét's unaliving. He still to this day alludes to being involved.
The monster. It's the monster. He is a dirty, pedo, child-raping monster.